went over here to the road and picked up some crushed pine straw. In my opinion, this is probably the best fuel that you can use for a smoker. Any pine straw works well, but this that's been run over a few times packs really well. So if you can get your hands on this, this stuff is great. It definitely beats out some of the pre-made alternatives that you can purchase from supply stores. So we're under drought conditions, so everybody be really careful with your smokers. There's a huge fire over in the Okefenokee right now, so definitely be careful. Don't, leave it on the back of a truck and drive off with it. It could cause some problems. No diesel fuel in my smoker. That probably wouldn't be great. So I'm just going to get a small piece lit here. Let me move this so I don't catch my fuel on fire. And normally I wouldn't do this right next to the hive, but we're kind of limited on space, so just making do here. But I'm going to get this burning. Sorry if I'm smoking anybody out. Don't burn your fingers. Ideally, you don't want fire on the top of your smoker. There we go. Keep pumping. And if you pack these really tightly, even a small one like this can burn for hours. I'm not going to pack it that tightly tonight because I don't want to have to put out a fire whenever we start to leave here. But if you don't pack it at all, if you kind of leave everything loose in there, your smoke will get hot really quickly, so just keep that in mind. If you don't pack it as tightly, just keep checking the temperature of your smoke to make sure that it hasn't gotten really hot. Go ahead and close that up. Periodically, after you first start, you'll want to pump it a few times just to keep it from going out. It will tend to go out if you don't let it breathe a little bit. I don't know if anybody wants to, but if you want to feel the temperature of this to see what I'm talking about, cool smoke, it's warm. It's not really cool right now, but if you really well pack a smoker, you won't really feel any heat coming off of that smoke. This one's not packed that tightly, so it's warm, but if I put it right there on those bees, it's not going to actually harm them, which is what we're looking for. If you pump it and you see embers coming out of the end of your smoker, you want to hold up there and maybe repack it. So get this out of my way really quick. I tend to work with just latex gloves for a couple of reasons, and one reason is that it keeps your hands clean so you don't end up with sticky hands whenever you're finished. It also helps if you do get a sting on one of your fingers. It allows you to get the stinger out pretty easily. All you have to do is kind of pop the glove and it pulls the stinger out. So you do get a minimal level of protection, but I prefer this to leather gloves because you don't end up crushing as many bees accidentally under those heavy gloves. That's definitely just a matter of comfort for you. When it's a hive that I know has a reputation for being a little more feisty, I'll put on the leather gloves because I don't feel like, taking a bunch of stings and having swollen hands. But this hive has been really gentle, so I'm going to just use these tonight. So, got a little wasp here, smoke her away. So this is a screened bottom hive. There's a wire mesh screen under here. So with a hive like this, whenever you're getting ready to open it, all you have to do is just kind of point your smoker underneath it here and give a few puffs. And you can actually hear the bees' volume ramp up a little bit as they start ventilating the hive, trying to clear that smoke. So you know it's penetrating in there and kind of calming things down and masking those pheromones when you hear them start fanning to clear the smoke. So the first thing that we're going to do with this particular hive, because it's an observation hive, I have one frame up here that I know that there's an unmarked queen on. We're going to pull this frame out. I'm going to attempt to locate the queen, and then assuming everything goes well and we find her, I'm actually going to mark the queen with a paint marker and show you how that's done. I will note that this is a medium frame observation hive, so these frames are shorter than what you typically see in a brood chamber of a beekeeper's box. These, I forget the exact dimensions, but these are about this tall compared to a deep frame is about that tall. So these are a little bit smaller, they're a little bit easier to manipulate. And again, I'm going to blow just a little bit of smoke across the top, not a whole lot. Set this off to the side. See how easily I can get this out of here. And she's not here for me to thank, but I would like to note that our Secretary Christie actually gave up some of her bees for this demonstration. This is part of one of her hives. All right, so the queen is on the face of the frame that's facing me. So if you want to come up and actually take a look, feel free. There's not a lot of flying bees around this, but the queen is actually right here. She's got a longer, dark abdomen. She's moving around looking for a place to lay right now, which I think this frame is pretty well covered at the moment. There's actually quite a bit of nectar on this frame. I've been feeding these bees for the past 2 or 3 days just to be sure they don't run out of stores while they're in the observation hive. She's right here, near the edge of the frame. Right here.
Okay.
Anybody else who wants to come up? She's right on the edge.
I want to see you grab it, Troy.
Grab it? I've not worked up the courage yet to try free-handed queen marking, so I'll show everybody my technique. Anybody else want a close view? Huh? All right, so when I'm marking queens, there are a lot of different ways to do this. My preferred method, the easiest for me, is to use this little push-in cage. You can buy this at any beekeeping supply store. Originally it had 3 pegs on this side. I've managed to break 2 of those off. They're not really that important. So basically what you do with this is you locate your queen and you take the marking cage and you set it down on top of her, and then you gently press it into the wax just enough so that she's immobilized. You don't want to, forcefully push it in there and accidentally crush her. So you push it in just enough so that she's immobilized, and then you've got, ideally, you would hope that her thorax is under one of these holes here so that you can place a paint mark on it. So you might have to put it on there and then lift up so that she can reposition herself and get that thorax where you can mark it clearly.
What color are you going to want?
This year is yellow, and I will have to look up the chart. There's an international standard that beekeepers use for queen marking. So there are 5 colors. So depending on the number that the year ends in, you use a different color, and each color repeats twice. This year is yellow. I can't remember.
Last year was white.
Yeah, I can't remember. There's a memory device for that color pattern, but I can't remember the memory technique. So we'll have to look that up later. Let me find her again really quick. Hopefully. She might have moved to the other side. Nope, there she is. And you ideally want to do this without getting a lot of her attendants around her. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult, but if you can. I've got her under it, so now I'm just applying pressure on the edges to kind of tighten the cage a little bit. Try and keep the workers off of her. Once I get it in place, I'll show everybody what we're trying to do here. She's not well positioned yet. I think I've got her good enough here. So there are some attendants on top of the cage right now, but she's under that push-in cage, and I'm going to just put a dab of paint on her thorax there. You'll want to leave the cage in place for a few moments after you put that dab on there. If you don't, then the workers will manage to get their feet all in that paint and they'll track it around the hive, and it also could potentially get on her wings or on other parts of her body that could maybe be harmful. So just try to keep her under there for, you know, just a few moments and let that paint dry. Thank you. If you haven't used these in a while, shake them really well, because the paint tends to get separate a little bit and get watery, and that can make a big mess too. So just give them a good shake if you haven't used them. It's been, I think, how long has it been? It would have been 2012 the last time we were in yellow?
I can't remember.
It's been a while since I've used this marker. Yes, yeah.
Paint all over the end of the
Oh,
thing.
and you can also do that. So keep it away as you're shaking. I managed to paint some workers, which is not ideal. All right, it is still a little bit watery. I'm going to shake that a little bit more. But the paint is pretty stable. It lasts for a while. I know I've had one marker at least 5 years. There we go. All right, let me see if I can blow some of these workers off the top. Might actually put a little bit of smoke there if my smoker hasn't gone out. See if I can get to her now. I'm blowing on her just a little bit there, trying to get that paint to dry.
You want me to tap it back up?
I'll grab it in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Normally I would wait a little bit longer, but I don't want to spend a lot of time waiting on that. I didn't get her thorax completely, but she's marked well enough that it definitely makes her easier to spot on the frame. If anybody wants to come take a look.
Oh, wow.
Yellow is definitely one of the more visible colors. I think white is probably my least favorite in terms of visibility, but they all work pretty well. It certainly makes her a lot easier to pick out on a frame. It is possible for that to kind of wear away as she works. The workers also sometimes kind of chew away at it. So older queen, it might be possible that you have to actually mark her more than one time throughout the course of her life. She's up at the top there.